she was at university in the UK. And it would be, to some extent, a stretch to say that as it were, we were close friends. I mean, we were friends because of other people. And I had a lot of opportunity to go to the United States, but I didn't have much time with him. I suppose I saw him once or twice a year, perhaps maybe maximum of 3 times a year. And quite often, if I was in the United States and doing things, and if he wasn't there, he would say, well, why don't you come and use my houses? So I said, that's very kind, thank you very much indeed. But it would be a considerable stretch to say that he was a very, very close friend. But he had the most extraordinary ability to bring extraordinary people together. And that's the bit that I remember, is going to the dinner parties where you would meet academics, politicians, people from the United Nations. I mean, it was a cosmopolitan group of what I would describe as US eminence.
Dus iedereen deed mee.
Was that what you... Because you were perceived by the public as being the party prince. Was that something you shared?
Well, I think that's also a bit of a stretch. I don't know why I've collected that title, because I never have really partied. I was single for quite a long time, in the early 80s. But then after I got married, I was very happy. And I've never really felt the need to go and party. And certainly going to Jeffrey's was not about partying. Absolutely not.
You said you weren't very good friends, but would you describe him as a good friend? Did you trust him?
Yes, I think I probably did. But again, I mean, I don't go into a friendship looking for the wrong thing, if you understand what I mean. I'm an engaging person. I want to be able to engage. I want to find out. I want to learn.
Epstein was a guest at Windsor Castle and at Sandringham. He was brought right into the heart of the royal family at your invitation.
But certainly at my invitation, not at the royal family's invitation. But remember that it was his girlfriend that was the key element in this. He was the, as it were, +1 to some extent in that aspect.
Am I right in thinking you threw a birthday party for Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, at Sandringham?
No, it was a shooting weekend.
A shooting weekend?
Just a straightforward shooting weekend.
But during these times that he was a guest at Windsor Castle at Sandringham, the shooting weekend,
yeah.
We now know that he was and had been procuring young girls for sex trafficking.
We now know that. At the time, there was no indication to me or anybody else that was what he was doing. And certainly, when I saw him either in the United States, when I saw him in the United States, or when I was staying in his houses in the United States, there was no indication, absolutely no indication.
En die Ghislaine Maxwell, dat is de vrouw die al die kinderen ronselde. Zij zorgde ervoor dat al die meiden aan boord kwamen. Ze zocht ze uit. Ze waren handpicked, gekozen door deze dame voor wie hij die shootingfeest heeft gehouden.
And if there was, you have to remember that at the time I was patron of the NSPCC's Full Stop campaign, so I was close up with what was going on in those time about getting rid of abuse to children. So I knew what the things were to look for, but I never saw them.
So you would have made that connection because you stayed with him, you were a visitor, a guest on many occasions at his homes, and nothing struck you as suspicious?
Nothing.
During that whole time?
Nothing.
Just for the record, you've been on his private plane?
Yes.
You've been to stay on his private island?
Yes.
You've stayed at his home in Palm Beach?
Yes.
You visited Ghislaine Maxwell's house in Belgravia in London.
Yes.
So, in 2006, in May, an arrest warrant was issued for Epstein for sexual assault of a minor.
Yes.
In July, he was invited to Windsor Castle to your daughter, Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday. Why would you do that?
Because I was asking Ghislaine. But even so, at the time, I don't think certainly I wasn't aware when the invitation was issued what was going on in the United States. And I wasn't aware until the media picked up on it, because he never said anything about it.
He never discussed with you the fact that an arrest warrant had been issued? No. So he came to that party knowing police were investigating him?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Was it police that were investigating?
En hij komt dus naar zijn verjaardag van zijn 18-jarige, die net 18 jaar geworden is, zijn dochter Beatrix. Zijn dochter heet Beatrix. En hij heeft Epstein niet uitgenodigd, maar Ghislaine Maxwell. Niet te vergeten dat Ghislaine Maxwell is degene die kinderen zelf ging halen. Plus, zij is ook degene die nu spoorloos verdwenen is. Niemand weet waar Ghislaine op dit moment is.
No, you see, this is the problem.
It was the Palm Beach police at the time.
But I mean, I'm afraid, you see, this is the problem. Is that an awful lot of this was going on in the United States, and I wasn't a party to it, and I knew nothing about it.
In 2008, he was convicted of soliciting and procuring a minor for prostitution. He was jailed. This was your friend. How did you feel about it?
Well, I ceased contact with him after I was aware that he was under investigation, and that was later on in 2006.
Nou, lekkere vriend dan. Ik laat hem even doorlopen. Als er iets interessants komt, dan zet ik hem weer aan.
It was one of those things that somebody's going through that sort of thing. Well, I'm terribly sorry, I can't be.
So no contact.
No contact.
When he was serving time, there was no call, no letter, nothing there.
No.
He was released in July. Within months, by December of 2010, you went to stay with him at his New York mansion. Why? Why were you staying with a convicted sex offender?
Right. I have always, ever since this has happened, and since this has become, as it were, public knowledge that I was there, I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do? Now, I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together. And I had a number of people counsel me in both directions, either to go and see him or not to go and see him. And I took the judgment call that because this was serious, and I felt that doing it over the telephone was the chicken's way of doing it. I had to go and see him and talk to him. And I went to see him, and I was doing a number of other things in New York at the time. And we had an opportunity to go for a walk in the park. And that was the conversation, coincidentally, that was photographed, which was when I said to him, I said, look, because of what has happened, I don't think it is appropriate that we should remain in contact.
Oké, ik ga even een filmpje opzoeken van een paar van de getuigen die anders zeggen.
Joined other women who say they were trafficked and abused by the American billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. He committed suicide in a prison cell while awaiting trial, and this was the first opportunity for his victims to speak out and be heard. And for Virginia Roberts and her lawyers, that meant asking Prince Andrew to step forward and reveal everything that he knows.
He knows what he's done, and he can attest to that, so...
Can you repeat that? We can't hear you.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
With respect to Prince Andrew or anyone else that has made statements, gratuitous statements, if anyone wants to come over here and talk with us and answer real questions that the victims have and that we have on their behalf, we welcome that invitation. I personally extended that invitation to Prince Andrew multiple times. Anytime, we are ready and we have a lot of questions for him.
What do you make of his adamant denials?
They're just bland statements that are not responding to anything. We have specific, pointed questions, and if he really wants to help, then we want his help.
And anybody can deny things.
Maar hij wil niet helpen.
In a printed statement.
I brought other girls in. Those girls brought other girls in. And no matter what, Jeffrey constantly had that open revolving door of young women, young teenagers, children, I like to call them, coming through his door for one purpose and one purpose alone. And he didn't care what he had to do to get that reaction from them, to get them to have sex with him or get them to, I mean, sometimes he would just jerk off in front of them and rub his nipples. Sometimes he would have intercourse with them. Sometimes he'd make them, you know, give them blowjobs. Ghislaine participated in these acts with him as well, you know, and that was just the never-ending cycle. That was every single day. So we were at the island by ourselves, Jeffrey and me and Ghislaine, and we had gone for a nice snorkeling event. I mean, in some ways, we were a little fucked up family. I mean, we would sit together and watch Sex in the City together, and we would go hiking. We would make things together. I mean, we collected all this pirate treasure, like just broken glass bottles, and we make a table from it. Like, we did weird family stuff. All right, so it just wasn't all about that, but that was how this worked, the inner goings of it. You know, it was, all right, you need to have sex at least, you know, Jeffrey needs to have sex at least 7 times a day and have this happen at least, you know, this many times a day. But in the meantime, you know, we're going to sit back and have some popcorn while you're giving you a blowjob and watching Sex in the City. Like, it was just really screwed up, kind of a little family unit for a while. So anyways, one day we went snorkeling on Jeffrey's Island, and it was beautiful. It was a great day. I was exhausted. It was, you know, hard to swim in the water. And we get up and we're taking off our flippers on the jetty. And Ghislaine, you know, starts talking to me about how would I feel about having a child. What? Having a baby? Yeah, it would be your baby, but it would really be our baby. And we would have you sign a document that says that you would have an allowance, we would pay you $200,000 a month, and you would have a nice house, but this child is really ours, and we can do what we want to do with our child. You could basically never take this child from us. I said, okay. Let me, you know, get my massage certificate, and I really want that. That's important to me, because eventually when you guys are done with me, I would like to have something to do with my life. Okay, we'll work on that, and blah, blah, blah. So a few months later, he sent me to Thailand to go get a massage certificate, right? On top of picking up another girl for him, of course. I escaped. I called Jeffrey to let him know that I was not coming back and I was not bringing the little Thai girl back. And he said, you know what, have a nice life, and hung up the phone.
Dus als deze meneer hem iedere dag zag of een aantal dagen heeft gezien en Epstein had iedere dag seks nodig, 7 dagen per week als we net hoorden, dan was hij er dus ook zeker weten bij.
Months by December of 2010, you went to stay with him at his New York mansion. Why? Why were you staying with a convicted sex offender?
Right. I have always, ever since this has happened, and since this has become, as it were, public knowledge that I was there, I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do? Now, I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together. And I had a number of people counsel me in both directions, either to go and see him or not to go and see him.
His release, and you were invited as
No,
the guest of honour.
Oh, in 2010, there certainly wasn't a party to celebrate his release in December, because it was a small dinner party. There were only 8 or 10 of us, I think, at the dinner. If there was a party then I know nothing about that.
You were invited to that dinner as a guest of honour.
Well, I was there, so there was a dinner. I don't think it was quite as you might put it, but yeah, okay. I was there I was there at a dinner. Yeah.
I'm just trying to work this out because you said you went to break up the relationship, and yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long.
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there.
But you were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay. I've gone through this in my mind so many times. At the end of the day, with the benefit of all the hindsight that one can have, it was definitely the wrong thing to do. But at the time, I felt it was the honourable and right thing to do.
And yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long.
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there.
But you were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay. I've gone through this in my mind so many times. At the end of the day, with the benefit of all the hindsight that one can have, it was definitely the wrong thing to do. But at the time, I felt it was the honourable and right thing to do. And I admit fully that my judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable, but that's just the way it is.
Because during that time, those few days, witnesses say they saw many young girls coming and going at the time. There is video footage of Epstein accompanied by young girls, and you were there staying in his house, catching up with friends.
If they were, then I wasn't a party to any of that. I never saw them. I mean, you have to understand that his house, I described it more as almost as a railway station, if you know what I mean, in the sense that there were people coming in and out of that house all the time.
Ja, jonge meiden.
What they were doing and why they were there, I had nothing to do with. So I'm afraid I can't make any comment on that because I really don't know.
Another guest was John Brockman, the literary agent. Now, he described seeing you there getting a foot massage from a young Russian woman. Did that happen?
Oh my god, kijk zijn gezicht.
You're absolutely sure or you can't remember?
Absolutely sure.
So John Brockman's statement is false?
I don't know Mr. Brockman, so I don't know what he's talking about.
But that definitely wasn't you getting a foot massage from a Russian girl in Jeffrey Epstein's house.
No.
It might seem a funny way to break off a friendship, a 4-day house party of sorts with a dinner. It's an odd way to break up a friendship.
It's a difficult way of putting it. That's a very stark way of putting it. Yes, you're absolutely right. But actually, the truth of it is that I actually only saw him for about the dinner party, the walk in the park, and probably passing in the passage.
Alleen waar de foto's van
let's
gemaakt
go to
zijn.
that Central Park walk,
Yeah,
which was snapped.
When one's away, the other one's there. I was on terminal leave at the time from the Royal Navy, so therefore I was at home.
Why would you remember that so specifically? Why would you remember a Pizza Express birthday and being at home?
Because going to Pizza Express in
Pizza?
London is an unusual thing for me to do. A very unusual thing for me to do. I've only been through Woking a couple of times, and I remember it weirdly, distinctly. As soon as somebody reminded me of it, I went, oh yes, I remember that. But I have no recollection of ever meeting or being in the company or the presence.
So you're absolutely sure that you're at home on the 10th of March?
Yeah.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating.
Oh.
Because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
You're a reptile.
I didn't sweat at the time, and that was... Oh, is she? Yes. I didn't sweat at the time, because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at, and I simply it was almost impossible for me to sweat, and it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to do that again. So I'm afraid to say that there's a medical condition that says that I didn't do it, so therefore.
Is it possible that you met Virginia Roberts, dined with her, danced with her in Tramp, had sex with her on another date?
No.
Do you remember meeting her at all?
No.
Do you know you didn't meet her, or do you just not remember
No,
meeting her?
I have. I don't know if I've met her, but no, I have no recollection of meeting her.
Because she was very specific. She described the dance that you had together in Tramp. She described meeting you. She was a 17-year-old girl meeting a senior member of the royal family.
Never happened.
She provided a photo of the
Yes.
two of you together.
Yes.
Your arm was around her waist.
Yes.
You've seen the photo.
I've seen the photograph.
How do you explain that?
I can't. Because I have absolutely no memory of that photograph ever being taken.
Do you recognise yourself in the photo?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult not to recognise yourself.
Your friend suggested that the photo is fake.
I think it's, from the investigations that we've done, you can't prove whether or not that photograph is faked or not, because it is a photograph of a photograph of a photograph. So it's very difficult to be able to prove it.